right into it. Thanks, Nanette. She's my right hand. Is it working for you, Nanette?
Yes, I did allow people to unmute themselves, but if everybody could just stay muted unless there's a question, then we'll be good. Maureen, you unmuted as well. So you have to unmute yourself. Sorry, I muted you too.
Thanks, Nanette.
Sorry, I was like, wait.
Take over. You can take over, Nanette.
Oh, no. I'm here to learn.
Okay, also need to record. Is it recording? Yes. Okay, here we go. Everybody, we're here to talk about 8 mistakes that I commonly see happening with a lot of people. And when you understand these mistakes, then you'll understand what not to do and what to do in lieu of these. So before we even start, though, I really want you to think about this because this is a free webinar and a lot of people have preconceived notions, thoughts about a free webinar. Like, oh, I'm not going to learn anything. You know, it's free. I'm not going to get much out of it. If this is your thought, take note because we're going to talk a lot more about thoughts as we move through this presentation. Your thoughts do determine your outcome. So if you're thinking that, you're not going to get much out of it. And I really do want you to get as much out of this as possible. I don't want you to be wasting your time and get the most out of it. So if that is your thought, change it to something that is much more beneficial for you. So I know I always go into anything, whether it's free or paid, and I say, if I get one thing out of this, just one thing, it's worth it. So we're talking about weight gain and why people don't lose weight. The main reason people don't lose weight is because they overeat. Now, this is excluding certain medications. And if you are on medications, your doctor, your pharmacist can tell you if this is something that is stopping weight loss. If you are pregnant, if you are breastfeeding, there's other circumstances that prevent weight loss. However, we're excluding those. We're just talking about, okay, we're an average person and we can't lose weight. So that's what we're talking about today. So why do people overeat? And I hear from a lot of people, I don't know why, or I don't know why I'm not losing weight. And I believe them. I see it all the time. There's a lot of people, especially as you reach menopause or later, who don't eat very much, but they don't lose weight. And by the end of this presentation, you're going to find out. The mistakes we're talking about will be covering 3 main reasons why people don't lose weight. And that is because of hormonal imbalance, because fat adaptation has been it's off balance, and we'll talk about that, and also thoughts. So those are the 3 main reasons people don't lose weight. And so the mistakes that we are going to be talking about revolve around those 3 main reasons. I do want to say too, though, that what we're talking about doesn't apply to just weight loss. These principles that we're talking about apply to health in general. And they improve health and they help with aging, they help with healthy living. So even if you're thinking, I don't have weight to lose, these are practices, principles that you want to have in place. We're talking about health in general, not just weight loss. Make sure you have your pen and paper to take notes, and also put down your questions so we can address those later. So the first mistake is using exercise to speed up weight loss. And now you're probably thinking, Maureen, exercise is a good thing, right? And it is. I am not the person to ever say exercise is not beneficial, but it's how exercise is used. If you are someone who catches yourself saying, oh my gosh, I've had a hectic day, I'm in the car, I see the kids' bag of cookies, I grab the cookies, I eat way too many cookies, Or it's the end of the day and I get home and I see whatever, some junk food, and you just take it in and then you say, okay, oh my gosh, I did the wrong thing. Now I'm going to go walk off 4 miles or 5 miles to walk off the calories that were consumed. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you don't want to be doing. You don't want to be using exercise to deal with overeating, because it's not addressing the underlying symptom, the underlying reason. When that happens, when you're reaching for things spontaneously that, you know, at the beginning of the day, you may have said, oh, there's no way I'm going to be eating that. It's not exercise that you want to be using. You want to have a food plan. We're going to be talking about that. You want to have strategy to deal with urges, and you want to be dealing with the thoughts that cause that in the first place. Often it's stress, often it's overwhelm. There's all kinds of thoughts that create those feelings, and those are the things to use, not exercise. The other reason is exercise is a beautiful thing. It is incredibly healthy. And when you use exercise in that way, you develop a negative association with it. So you know how we all have heard of, I'm just going to admit someone here. We've all heard of how Pavlov trained the dogs, right? You have food, you have the bell, you ring the bell, and the dogs salivate, and then over time you just have to ring the bell and the dogs salivate. Well, if you're using exercise in this way, you're pairing it with overeating, you develop this negative association with exercise, and you don't want to do that. You don't ever want to do that. The other big reason is that you're using exercise as punishment. And when you are using something because you have been bad, you see yourself as bad, that's a thought. I've been bad. I'm going to do something because I don't like what I did. The result of that is never positive. When you are doing something that in this way to punish yourself, you don't get the result you want. So what I mean by that is, for example, you know how people will start in January, they have these resolutions, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it peters out. It peters out because the motivation for the exercise is punishment. That is not a lasting, motivating reason. The other thing I want to say that I have a very personal story about exercise, and exercise really is a form of self-care. It's self-love. My brother broke his neck when he was 23, and he lived for 30 years in a wheelchair. And when I would see him look at people who were biking by or running by, when I saw the look in his eyes, it was, oh my gosh, it was everything. And when you think about it, like, we're born to move. You'll never see a little child not want to move. It's a beautiful thing. So use it that way, and don't use it to punish yourself or use it because you've overeaten. That's not when you want to use exercise. So if this is something you do, stop doing it. Use exercise when you're feeling good. Use it when it is an act of self-love, not an act of punishment. Okay. Mistake number 2, eating when you're not hungry. So there's 2 different forms of hunger, and one is physical hunger. Physical hunger starts in your body and it travels to your brain. It sends neurotransmitters to your brain. I'm hungry, and you eat. The other form of hunger are thoughts of hunger. And these thoughts are repeated so much and so often and for so long. They're so automatic that it actually feels like hunger, but they're thoughts. Now, the thought, one thing that really surprises me when I work with women, especially, is how many people don't understand or realize physical hunger. They're so disconnected with their bodies that they don't even recognize their physical hunger, their signs of physical hunger. If this is you, you want to really get back in touch with your body. And the best way to do that is to keep a food journal and start to really take notice what you're feeling, when you're feeling, and recognize, is it a thought of hunger or is it a real physical sensation of hunger? You've probably heard, if you think you're hungry, wait about 15 minutes and see if is it building and building, or has it dissipated? And another really good thing to do is question your thoughts. And I'm going to talk about a process that you can, well, actually, we'll talk more about thoughts. We won't have time to go into the process today, but we will talk about thoughts. So some thoughts that trigger hunger are like, I'm tired and I need food. That's a common one. Another one is, I just worked out, I need food. You may or may not be hungry. The idea here is that you want to eat only when you're hungry, not when you have thoughts, I should be eating, or food will help however it is I'm feeling. It's lunchtime. I need to eat, it's lunch, even if I'm not hungry. It's a thought. You have to check in, and you have to understand with that what your hunger signals are, your physical signals. So do keep your a food journal, write down your physical symptoms, and understand true hunger from emotional hunger. Mistake number 3, not planning your food. And this is something I see a lot as well when I work with people. You've probably heard this, or if you've worked with me before, I know you've heard it, how important it is to plan your food. And there's a really good reason for this. As humans, what differentiates us from animals is our prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is what we use for learning and for planning and analyzing and debating, and all those higher level skills come from our prefrontal cortex. So when you plan your food, when you take the time to think about it, you're operating from your higher brain. When you don't plan your food and you're having one of those days, like you come home from work, it's like, oh my God, there's nothing in the fridge. Then you're operating from your lower brain, your automatic brain, and the automatic brain the older brain does not have the ability to be reasoning and thinking and saying, is this really a good choice for me? No, the older brain acts in the moment, no thinking, and its job is to protect you from possible pain. And believe it or not, thoughts of distress, thoughts of hunger, all these, that older brain perceives as pain. So it will do everything for you. It's helping you for you to get out of that sensation immediately. So you do want to plan your food. I personally like to do it on the weekend. I look ahead at the entire week. I look to see where there's times when it's going to be, super busy and won't have time to actually cook. So we'll prepare things ahead of time. But definitely, even if we don't have time to prepare things ahead of time, we'll look and do a grocery list and think about what we want to eat and plan it out so that when we are super busy and we come home, we know what to do. Or even when you're running out in the morning, you can take something out and you know what it is because you've made the plan. So here I have, what we were just talking about. No plan, you're at the mercy of your lower brain. The lower brain always seeks pleasure, avoids pain, and wants immediate gratification for you. So what you do on this plan, before I almost forgot. What works for me is the weekend, but a lot of people that doesn't work for them. That's just, it's too big of a job. And a lot of people, actually more than the average, work better with a daily plan. And what they'll do, this is what we do in our coaching, is we'll look at the day, the next day. Okay, and make a plan. What am I agreeing to eat? And stick to that. And so there is a plan. And then at the end of the day, the person will do a journal or tick off. I like the tick off method. Yep, I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. If there were any changes, you just jot it down. And you know you have a great food plan when your food plan and your journal are the same. You, at the end of the day, you have done exactly what you would tell yourself you would do. That is how people stick with eating the foods that they're committing to eat. And we're going to talk about the foods, and I know you already have a really good idea of what foods, but that's how you commit to your food. And that's how you don't let your thoughts take control, and you don't let your feelings get the best of you, and feelings of stress, there's just so many feelings that can bring on the thoughts of snacking and overeating and indulging in the foods that we know will create weight gain. So no more than 3 meals, and we'll talk about this some more, and no snacking. So that's contrary to what we've heard for so long, right? And no flour or sugar. Mistake number 4. This is a biggie, you guys. Eating foods that cause your insulin to skyrocket. Our bodies have not evolved. Wheat, like flour, all those processed foods that man has invented have just been around for over 100 years now. And our bodies have not evolved to be able to deal with those highly concentrated foods. And we've seen this, right? The population has gotten increasingly overweight. The obesity rate has never been higher, despite having amazing food available to us. We basically can go to the grocery store at any point in the year and have everything available to us. And then there's also so much information on the internet, and yet obesity keeps increasing, and it's because of this. So insulin is the hormone that's in charge of determining whether you're using fat, burning fat, or storing fat. Insulin, when insulin is in your bloodstream, you are storing fat. What happens when you eat these highly concentrated foods, insulin goes up. When insulin is up, it allows your cells to utilize some of the glucose that has been broken down, and some of it gets stored. It's not like it's always all used or all stored. And if you're eating unprocessed foods, you're eating what we call the healthier foods, then there's this natural rhythm. You eat, a little gets used, some gets stored, and then later on when your insulin drops, then the food that's been stored is used as fuel. So that's a natural balance and rhythm. But what happens when people eat these concentrated foods, or also I'm sure you've heard of the glycemic index. That's a good scale to help you understand what foods will cause a high insulin response and what foods are better to eat. But really, it's not complicated. Just think about what has man made in the past 100 years. Think about those middle aisles in the grocery store. Those are the foods that when you eat, you will get this surge of insulin. Now, initially, it's not an issue. When we're younger, it's not really an issue. It takes time for this to become an issue. And you'll start to see it in the 40s and 50s, and people will say, I just can't lose weight. Well, it's because of this. So these highly processed foods, when they've been consumed over time, it causes insulin resistance. And this is when you are not using your fat stores. So because insulin is being released, then your cells in your body need more and more insulin to be able to access the glucose, to take it into the cell as fuel. So you have more and more insulin being produced, which means you're never using your own fat stores, because insulin blocks, when insulin is in your bloodstream, it's blocking your own fat from being released and used as fuel. So what you really want to do is rebalance hormone, your insulin, get it lower, and be able to use your own fuel, your own fat as fuel. So it's like you're dining in. You can use your own fat as fuel. Now, another reason why these foods cause us to gain weight and not lose it is that these concentrated foods cause a concentrated release of dopamine, and dopamine is our happy neurotransmitter. So it's the same one, it's the pleasure one, it's the same one released when people take drugs. It's sugar, same thing. The more you use them, the more you need. So then you literally have cravings for these foods all the time because you want to be feeling the pleasure. So you need more and more, and you're craving them. You're just craving them. So that's another reason why these highly concentrated foods cause this insulin imbalance. Now, so the two best strategies is to eat unprocessed foods and don't eat as often. So this is contrary, it's contrary to so much information we were given for decades, right? Eat often, don't let your blood glucose blood sugar drop. That's what we were told. And the other thing is, and we'll talk about fat too, not to eat fat. That's a problem. So because of those messages that we were getting, people were eating these highly concentrated foods for too long. And that's why we have this obesity problem in North America. So this is a huge issue, especially here. But actually, when you go to Europe now, it seems to be in Europe and almost most countries now. Okay. I'm just going to check the time. How are we doing for time? We're pretty good. Okay, mistake number 5 is snacking. And snacking, you'll now understand, snacking goes in line with what we were just talking about. Every time you eat, you release insulin. You want to give your body a break. You don't want to eat just to eat. So that message of every, 2-3 hours, whatever. Now, we're not talking about endurance athletes. We're just talking about average day-to-day life. When you eat a snack, you're going to release insulin. And remember, we talked, insulin is the fat storage hormone. If you've got insulin in your blood, you're going to be storing fat. Absent of insulin, you're actually going to be using your fat stores. So what's been found now is that what is best for women, I see we're all women on this call, is to be eating breakfast. Now that's a message we've been getting for a long time. To eat breakfast within 2 hours of getting up. And then your lunch, make your lunch a smaller, lighter meal, like a nice salad with a little bit of protein, healthy fats, but you're not consuming a lot, and then have a normal dinner. So that's what the latest research is showing in terms of the best eating practices to keep your insulin level low and improve other health markers as well. Wow, I'm really zipping through this. I'm thinking maybe I'm eliminating a lot of stuff. So mistake number 6, intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting is a wonderful tool for weight loss. It's a wonderful tool. I'm not saying that, but a lot of people aren't using it right. So intermittent fasting, if you can look up the benefits, there's so many wonderful benefits. It does help keep that insulin low. You know, it gives your body a break from insulin being produced. It does help you with fat adaptation. So when insulin is low and you can use your own fat stores, you get better and better at fat adaptation. You want to be able to use your fat for fuel. It's so efficient. And as we talked about earlier, that's one of the common reasons why people can't lose weight, is because that balance is off, using your own body fat as fuel. So with intermittent fasting, there's different periods. You can go 12 hours, you can go 14, you can go 16. And what is best for you really depends on you. You need to learn your rhythms, what is good for you. And I'm actually going to give you an example because of, and I'll use myself as an example, because of all the research I was doing on how effective and healthy intermittent fasting is. I was trying to extend my 12-hour window. And I conscientiously, for 10 months, tried to do this. A lot of you have seen my goal tracker. I have my health goals, and every day I write down what I've done, what I haven't done. And I could not extend it beyond, occasionally I can get to 13 hours, but I can't extend it beyond 12. It doesn't work for me. My circadian rhythm is so ingrained, and I am hungry in the morning at a certain time. So that doesn't work for me. Other people, if you're someone who's never hungry in the morning and you can go to 11 or usually like 11 to 7 is a good period for intermittent fasting, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Now, what is not being used properly with intermittent fasting is not the time. It's what people are trying to cut out calories to lose weight. Intermittent fasting is important to use as a time. You know, you're narrowing your window of eating. But a lot of people are also using it to cut out calories, important calories. I'm not talking about processed calories. I'm talking about the unprocessed foods. And you need those nutrients. You need those minerals and vitamins to be working efficiently and to be healthy. You don't want to be using intermittent fasting to cut down on your calories. Now, processed calories, yes, but not the healthy calories. I actually, with my clients, I use a sheet where it helps them track how many of the nutrients they're getting. So not calories, but how many servings of red, green, orange, etc. So that they're focusing on the right kind of calories. Calorie counting, again, is not efficient. It's not the way to go, because when we talked about the insulin resistance, let's say a cookie is 100 calories versus an apple is 100 calories. Well, the apple is going to have a much, much lower insulin response than that cookie. So a calorie is not a calorie. It really depends on what you're eating. So if you are using intermittent fasting, which is good, by the way, if you're using that longer one, the 16-hour one, don't be cutting out important calories. The most recent research, I mentioned that earlier, is showing that a 13-hour fast is really healthy. And I find personally, with a lot of people I work with, that is a doable time frame. It's like, okay, you can go, a 12-1 is, let's say you stop eating at 7 p.m. and you don't eat till 7 a.m. the next morning, or 8 a.m., whatever your window of eating is. But that's manageable. It's like mentally manageable for people, whereas going to 11 often is really hard. Also for planning. I know right now a lot of people are working at home, but just planning. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm leaving the house. I have to make sure I do have my lunch and other stuff, because you have to be eating what you need within that 8-hour window. So you have to be very organized and well planned, and have the right foods. Okay, I think that's it. I hope that makes sense. So if you do have questions though, write them down. Okay, mistake number 7 is feelings. And this is the area, my master's is in psychology, so I love this piece of it. People eat their feelings. Feelings are really, really hard to process in a lot of times. And this is why learning to process your feelings is absolutely necessary if you really want to sustain weight loss for the long term. And actually, this isn't just for eating. This is for all the overs: overeating, over drinking, gambling, shopping, anything, even exercise. You can overuse exercise, when it's being used to not feel. So food is a way to escape. And there are 3 ways to deal with feelings. You can totally resist, which a lot of people do. And actually, I can tell you my own personal story. For quite a while, I used exercise to even resist feeling grief, feeling loss. I would exercise because it would be the only time I could exercise hard enough where my brain actually wasn't thinking about grief and loss, and I wasn't feeling grief and loss, because I was having, for a few short minutes, focus on my breath, and that was it. Well, you never ever learn to deal with the overeating, whatever result that you're not happy with in your life. You will never get the results you want if you're not processing the feeling behind it. It's a Band-Aid. You have to, whatever the over is a Band-Aid to dealing with what is really going on inside. So remember how I mentioned that our lower brain is there to protect us? And that's what it does. When we feel sadness, grief, loss, stress, anxiety, all those things. Stress and anxiety are absolute clues that you're a runner. You're running from your feelings. When you learn to process those feelings, you can actually deal with whatever's going on. The other way is avoiding your feelings. Running to the fridge. Oh my gosh, I'm lonely, I'm whatever. I'm gonna run to the fridge and eat, or I'm gonna grab that glass of wine, whatever it is. The third way, the way that I really want you guys to think about and take away from this, is learning to allow your feelings. And it may sound easy, but allowing your feelings is not easy. Truly not easy. I know I have a coach too. I've been working through a lot of this. And I tell you though, when you're able to process your feelings and stay with your feelings and be with your feeling, you can create the results you want. When you're not creating the results you want, you know it's because there are feelings that have not been dealt with. When you learn to process your emotions, you will, after balancing your hormones and becoming fat adaptive and having the right food protocol for you, you will sustain weight loss. I'm going to give you an example. So someone I was working with actually last week, we were dealing with the snacking junk food at night. That's her issue right now. And so we talked about it. I said, well, she didn't follow her food protocol. And I said, okay, well, what triggered that? She said, I was so flippin' bored. Like, I'm just sitting there and I thought of food. And then the more I sat there, the more I thought of food. And I went and I got the bag of chips. And I said, okay, well, what were you thinking at the time? So you were bored. Thoughts trigger feelings. So what were you thinking? And she said, well, it's COVID. It's like, there's all the things I normally do in the evening, I can't do. And I said, oh, okay. So the boredom, there's a loss there. And then she went on, we talked some more, and she went on, her kids are gone. They're not at home anymore. And she's not going to the meetings, community meetings that really helped her once the kids were gone. She realized really what the feeling was feeling worthless. Who am I now? Like, who am I? And that feeling was so hard for her to process, and she didn't even recognize it. She didn't even see it. This is the benefit of coaching, right? It takes someone else to be like a mirror for you, to help you see what's going on. And she was eating instead of dealing with those feelings. So now, how do you deal with these feelings? You need to sit with them. So when a feeling comes on and you recognize this is something I'm fighting, sit with it. Actually sit with it. And journaling is so important. So when you're food journaling, also you want to be journaling about your feelings and your thoughts, and get in touch with that feeling and actually explore it. Like, where is it in your body? For me, it's always in my GI-ish area. And coincidence, if I'm going to have issues, it's GI issues, right? Other people, it's their heart area. Some people, it's their throat area. Some people, it's their limbs. They just feel super heavy. So where is your feeling? You can even put a color to your feeling. Like, often people will say anger, red, right? You can think of a color. Think about what memories trigger that feeling. There's probably some memories, there's unconscious memories there that trigger this feeling. Think about what it makes you want to do. And that's often with overeaters, it's that they run to the fridge, or over drinkers, it's they reach for the bottle. Shopping, you can shop on the internet, whatever, but understand what the feeling is and sit with it. And at the bottom line, the message is there is no feeling in this world that will kill you. No feeling. Now, the reason we have these strong feelings, again, is that lower brain that is trying to protect us. And it will shove all these thoughts in our brain to help us not feel what it sees as pain. When you start to really get in touch with this, you can come up with strategies. So I'll give you a personal story. I don't like social media. I enjoy doing things like this. I don't like doing lives. I'm uncomfortable with them. And so when you peel the onion, when you keep exploring the feeling, at the root of almost every feeling is fear. It's fear of not belonging, fear of losing love. It's that fear. So what I've learned to do is, when I have something to do like that, I'll actually talk to fear. Fear is a little kid to me, and I tell the child, go in the corner. Here's a coloring book. I don't need you right now. I know you're trying to help me, but I'm okay, and I don't need you right now. The message here, you guys, is when you really understand what you're feeling, you can live with it. You can understand that the feeling is less harmful to you than the actions that you're taking to numb those feelings. And the last one, number 8. What triggers these feelings are your thoughts. And to me, this is just like phenomenal. It's the most empowering thing I think I've learned. is so empowering. And I'll tell you why. We always think it's the circumstance or a person who is causing us to feel a certain way. I am stressed because of, and it's something outside of us. It's not us, but it's not true. It is our thoughts that create our feelings. No person is ever responsible for how we are feeling. It's our thoughts. So yeah, I'll give you an example. Actually, I put this here because this one I didn't want to forget to tell you about. Think about a scale. I was working with a lady a little while ago, and she was doing such an awesome job. You know, she'd gotten rid of the processed foods, and she wasn't still at that point of using exercise properly. I know she was using it more because as a punishment, but she was doing great, and she'd been vigilant with this for several weeks. She got on the scale, and then the scale hadn't budged. She was devastated, like devastated. And maybe you can identify with this, right? Most people, when they see that the number go up, they get so down and depressed and angry and whatever. They may overeat, but they're not kind to themselves. The thoughts going through your brain when that happens are terrible. If the numbers go down, oh, all of a sudden it's a great day. You know, ooh, this is awesome. So, but think about this. A scale is a piece of metal or plastic, whatever your scale is. The numbers are arbitrary. They're numbers. That's all they are. That number, that scale does not have the power. An inanimate object does not have the power to make you feel anything. It's your thoughts about the number. So if someone got on the scale right now and had a number come up, it wouldn't affect me because I don't have any thoughts about that number. Thoughts are not facts, but we treat thoughts like facts. Oh my God, the number went up. I'm a horrible person. I have no control. I'll never figure this out. Like the self-talk is so negative. What is so empowering about this is when you realize when you're feeling something that is not giving you the results you want, the work that needs to be done is looking at the thoughts. Well, what thought is creating that feeling? Because when you feel, so you stand on the scale and you see those numbers. So those, let's say it's 200. Person sees that and thinks all those negative thoughts. Then they feel horrible. I'm a failure. Well, fill in the blank. You've probably thought of them. What action do you take when you feel horrible? The action you take is often it's overeating. I give up. Oh man, I'm just going to eat whatever. Or punishment, use exercise. Or punishment, just talk to yourself like you would never talk to anybody else in this whole world. The result of that is not positive. It will not bring you to the result that you want. The only way to get the result you want is to change that thought. And there's a whole process in doing this. It's simple, and yet incredibly hard. But it's amazing because it's so empowering. And we're not just talking about weight, we're talking about anything in life. If you are not getting the result you want, you can change the thought. It can be a slow process, it can be a fast process, but just think how empowering that is. I just love this. So always remember our lower brain is there for survival. It's that flight, fight part of our brain. That lower brain wants to avoid pain. And the thoughts that are created to help you avoid pain are automatic. Most people are not even aware of them. Totally not aware. And I just had an experience at Christmas time, and Now, what you do to be aware of your thoughts is do the thought download, part of your journal. Every morning I do a thought download, and I look at the thoughts like it's just free flowing. Look at the thoughts that are not helping you achieve whatever result you want. And so I do this every day. And Christmas was this was right before Christmas. So our son was supposed to come. We had a plane ticket for him. And about 4 days before it was decided, it was all three of us decided it just wasn't the right thing to do. I knew I was going to be so sad and disappointed. And I sat and I thought I processed those feelings. But I still had this undercurrent of anger, like this anger. But I was doing all the thought downloads and I was doing everything I thought. I was sitting with the emotion. And Frank asked me one little question and it all came to the surface. And yet I thought I was working with it. So some of the ingrained things that we've been carrying for decades, you guys, it takes a while to unfold them, but it can be done. And it's so exciting. Thought errors. I have no willpower. Totally false. I am not a priority. Big one. I hear it all the time. I don't have time for myself. I don't have time to cook healthy. Whatever. Everything else is a priority, but the person's health. I look horrible. I'm so far gone. I'm not even trying. Some about the actual process of weight loss. Healthy food is boring. I hear that one a lot. Healthy food is so boring. Remember, food is not entertainment. Your goal is to get to the point where food is fuel, period. And what is so awesome about this is all that energy that you're using up, thinking about food, thinking about your body, thinking about all this, you can take, it can be a non-issue. And you can take that energy and apply it to what your real beautiful life goals are. Some other thoughts. Well, food is entertainment. Now, we do have a society that revolves around this a lot. I don't have time to eat. So there's some of them. So no circumstance or person is ever responsible for how you feel. We're talking about 100% personal responsibility. What you think or believe about the circumstance or person is what causes your feelings. So they're not facts. The only thing that's a fact is something that can be proven in a court of law. It is something that we can look at the sky and unless you're colorblind, you would say, yes, the sky is blue. The grass is green. However, the fact that your sister-in-law didn't invite you over is not a fact. That's a thought. You know, what happens from that? All those things are just thoughts and they can be changed just as easily as you can just as easily create a thought that is for you as there is against you. But we choose thoughts that are against us because that lower brain of ours feels it's protecting us. The minute you want to do something that is a reach goal, your automatic brain perceives that as danger, fear, and it comes up with all these false thoughts, beliefs to protect you. When you recognize that, it just opens the door and it allows so many possibilities. I'm looking at the time. I'm going to talk about one more thing, then I'm going to open up for questions. So if this resonated with you and you're interested in learning more, in working with me, there's one-on-one. And starting next week, I have a 6-week group coaching program called Reset, Renew, Results. And this is going to be on Zoom 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. There's a private Facebook group for community. And I know some of you have been in some of my communities. I really put a lot of effort into creating a really good supportive community. I take great pride in that. So the Facebook private group is always a really great addition to that. We're going to be talking about this process that I just mentioned in the last one about thoughts, helping you There's a model that you can actually follow to help you identify your thoughts, your feelings, your actions and results, and change them so that they're intentional and serve you. We'll be talking about you'll create personal strategy for urges. We start out actually by dealing with hormone imbalance and a proper food plan. So you have your own food plan. Not two people have the same food plan, because it's based on your preferences, your food preferences, your life, and everybody responds differently to food. So there's a lot of tweaking initially. So that's something that I guide people with. How to process feelings. That's a big one. And what else? I think I got through that. So if you're interested, I think Nanette can post the link in the chat box, and you can talk to me after too. And also, if you're someone who's been affected by COVID and you're interested in this, and things are a little tight though, talk to me. We can certainly come up with something. And that's it, you guys. That is it. So we can open it up if you have to go. We are almost at the hour, so you can go. If not, if you want to chat, we can take some questions, and we'll open it up. How does that sound, Nanette?
I have a question, Maureen. It's Jackie.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you eat.
Sorry, 1 second. Just going to stop the recording.